Hey there and welcome to D&D Daily. My name is Sage and today I'm going to be doing a new series, a series called Blind Stat Block Reading with Sage. I'm going to go ahead and jump on some stat blocks that I've never read before, read them with you, and give you my initial impressions on what I think is cool and how to use them in-game. I'm going to be starting this series off by jumping into Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, as it is the newest book that I'm aware of, and we're going to go ahead and start from the top and work our way down. Today, we're going to be talking about Amethyst Dragons. Let's jump into it. Amethyst Dragons, the mightiest of the gem dragons, study and psionically manipulate the fundamental principles of the multiverse, from the force of gravity to the emanations of the outer planes. Their innate psionics give them a measure of control over how physical laws affect them. They defy gravity with flight that doesn't rely solely upon their great wings, and gravitational force empowers both their devastating breath weapon and the exploding amethyst crystals they spit at their foes. When first hatched, an amethyst dragon has scales of dull, opaque purple. As the dragon grows, their scales, horns, and wing membranes become more vibrant and translucent. When the dragon is fully matured, their scales resemble rich purple amethyst crystals, refracting light to take on an inner glow. Their pupils fade with age, making the eyes of an ancient dragon resemble glowing white or pale lavender orbs. Crystalline horns reminiscent of amethyst chunks hover behind their heads, held there by telekinetic force and shifting with their moods. So that's kind of cool. They have their spikes floating behind them, and then it moves, and so if they get pissed off, that's kind of cool. I like that it moves with their mood. That gives me as a DM something to work with as a descriptor. Cosmological study. Many amethyst dragons are fascinated by the existence of other worlds in the material plane, and especially the way individual dragons manifest unique echoes across those worlds. They also prize understanding of the cosmic forces that emanate from the outer planes, studying the opposing tides of good and evil, chaos and order, so they can offer counsel to those with the wisdom to accept it. Amethyst dragons pay particular attention to intrusions of the far realm into the material plane. They loathe the corruption that accompanies such intrusions into the world, making them fierce opponents of the far realm, and any creatures warped by its touch. Strangely, though, they are intrigued by and fond of flumps. These aberrations, which oppose the depredations of mind flayers and other wicked aberrations, remind amethyst dragons that allies can be found in the strangest of places. I wouldn't be surprised if the amethyst dragon that my party runs into is hanging out with a group of flumps. Hoarded Arcana. In addition to material wealth, amethyst dragons delight in collecting knowledge and magic dealing with the nature of the planes of existence, cosmic forces, and distant worlds. They prize treasure drawn from different worlds of the material plane, especially magic items and artworks that highlight the unique nature of different worlds. Magic items that allow teleportation or travel between planes, spellbooks filled with similar magic, and treatises examining the nature of the multiverse form the centerpiece of an amethyst dragon's hoard. An amethyst dragon's lair. Amethyst dragons make their lairs in caves next to or under secluded pools and lakes, preferring caverns with at least one entrance submerged underwater. They prize locations with a combination of open space, connecting tunnels, and dead ends to make the most of their natural and magical mobility, using flight and teleportation to navigate obstacles in their lairs. The challenge rating of a legendary amethyst dragon increases by 1 when it's encountered in its lair. So if I'm not mistaken, most dragons, the legendary and the ancient, can both use lair actions, but maybe in this case it's only the legendary. Or not the ancient, excuse me, the adult. Also, that makes me think that, reading that water portion, that the extra movement that this dragon is going to get is going to be the amphibious one. We'll have to wait and see. The first of the Amethyst Dragon's lair actions is Beguiling Whisper. The dragon telepathically whispers to one creature within range of the dragon's telepathy. The creature must succeed on a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw or be charmed by the dragon until initiative count 20 on the next round. A creature charmed in this way obeys to the best of its ability any command the dragon issues that isn't directly harmful to the creature. That's really strong. Take your ally, make it my ally. I would use that one often, I imagine, depending on how strong the other two are. Imprisoning Force. The dragon casts the Force Cage spell, using its spell save DC and requiring no spell components. The spell ends early if the dragon uses this lair action again or dies, so it doesn't even last for one round, it lasts for multiple. Ooh, that's brutal. So that's what you open with. the Amethyst Dragon will use Force Cage right at the beginning. Depending on its intention, it might, want to divide and conquer, put the back line in a Force Cage so they can chew on the front line type thing. Or put everyone in the Force Cage and so it can just leave. I imagine it will do more often than not, being more of a neutral nature, not really wanting to kill, just wanting to live its own life. Of course, that might change considering that they will be in its lair, and so I doubt it'd leave its lair left alone, so maybe the kill's the way to go. Next one, spatial projection. The dragon chooses a space it can fit into within the lair. It exists in its own space and the chosen space simultaneously until initiative count 20 on the next round. Okay, whenever it moves or takes an action, it chooses which version of itself is moving or acting. If an effect or attack can target both of the dragon spaces at the same time, the dragon is affected only once. Okay, interesting. I am not sure what to make of that one completely. So it basically creates like an echo from Echo Knight, though it sounds like they have to share actions, movement, everything, and then they also share damage, so you can attack either one. So it kind of makes it so their positioning is awkward, is kind of my initial impression. I think what stands out to me is that a status effect targeted and poisoned one of them, if it could, then the other one still wouldn't have that status. What am I missing here? What is good about this? Because overall it seems kind of like meh to me. If you guys have any ideas of how to use this really effectively, please let me know, because I would like to. Alright, getting into regional effects. Regional effects are my favorite thing about dragons because they innately affect your world. And I think it's cool to take regional effects and build an idea off of them. So let's see what we got here. Once per day, the dragon can cast the Legend Lore spell, requiring no spell components, naming any person, place, or object within 1 mile of the lair as the spell's subject. Now that's a pretty easy metagaming option for the DM to be like, I Legend Lore this PC and now I know his background. And now the dragon can speak as if he knows the background. So it's just like a useful metagaming tool. Crystal Profusion. Amethyst crystals and geodes form along muddy shores and lake beds within 6 miles of the lair. Okay, that's interesting. We'll touch back on that. Thriving wildlife. Fish and other aquatic beasts reproduce rapidly and thrive in bodies of water within 6 miles of the lair. Foraging in these waters yields twice the usual amount of food. Okay, same. That's interesting. We'll go back to that. Watery Sight. Water within 6 miles of the lair is a conduit for the dragon's psionic presence. As an action, the dragon can cast the Clairvoyant spell, requiring no spell components and targeting any body of water in that region. If the dragon dies, the populations of aquatic life near the lair return to normal levels over the course of 1d10 days. The existing abundance of amethyst remains, but new crystals and geodes form at a normal rate. Okay, so the Watery Sight is more metagaming, the dragon can just kind of know what's going on 6 miles around the lair. Pretty sweet. Thriving Wildlife and Crystal Profusions is really cool, because what I said before, where you can build from it, so what pops in my head there is a city that's nearby the dragon that has fish and amethysts as their main export. And so you have this nice city, and maybe they have a good relationship with the dragon, or maybe they don't know the dragon exists, one of the two. And maybe there's a guild that's selling these amethysts at a lower rate than any other guild can, and so they're keeping it a secret how they're getting these excellent amethysts. There's a lot to play with there. There's secret guilds that are trying to keep secrets. There's a city that is completely unaware, and the dragon's aware of them and is they can benefit from my presence as long as they don't know I exist type thing. So there are a bounty of world building opportunities in those two lines, and I think that's my favorite thing about the Amethyst Dragon so far. Before jumping into the actual stat block, I'm going to go pull up some artwork. The thing that stands out to me is, of course, the floating spines, but also how big its tail is. And I imagine that's because it has that gravitational power I talked about before, that it can lift its tail up with gravity. Hopefully we get some option. It didn't mention its tail, but that's what's standing out to me. Hopefully we can get some sort of option of how to use that tail in combat, because I think that'd be pretty neat. Alright, let's jump into the stat blocks. Starting out with the Ancient Amethyst Dragon. We'll start from the top and head on down. It's gargantuan. It's neutral. It has 20 AC, 444 hit points. Has a speed of 40, a flying speed of 80, and a hover. That goes back to that gravitational thing, so it can hover, and swim of 40 feet. Plus 8 strength, plus 2 dex, plus 8 con, plus 8 intelligence, plus 4 wisdom, plus 6 charisma. Alright, so it has a couple bonus saving throws, dex, con, wisdom, charisma, which are really solid saving throws to have. Has some skills, arcana, perception, persuasion, and stealth. Stealth kind of on the lower end of that. Damage resistances, force, and psychic. Psychic's a pretty rare resistance, so that's pretty neat. Condition immunities, frightened and prone. Having prone as an immunity is really great as a flying creature because you can't get knocked out of the sky. And I just can't imagine a frightened dragon. Blind sight is 60 feet. Dark vision is 120 feet. Pretty typical of dragons. It knows draconic and common, and it has telepathy out to 120 feet. That's pretty neat. Challenge rating 23 or 24 if it's in its lair with a proficiency bonus of +7. It is indeed amphibious, so we called it right, and it has legendary resistances. Its multi-attack consists of a bite and 2 claws. Its bite is +15 to hit, 15 feet range, 1 target, 2d10 plus 8 piercing damage, plus 3d8 force damage. So just a solid amount of damage there. And the claw is plus 15 to hit, reach 10 feet, 1 target, 2d6 plus 8 slashing damage. So not as good as the bite. Singularity Breath. The dragon creates a shining bead of gravitational force in its mouth, then releases the energy in a 90-foot cone. Each creature in the area must make a DC 23 strength saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 14d8 force damage, and its speed becomes 0 until the start of the dragon's next turn. On a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage, and its speed isn't reduced. Okay, so what I like about these gem dragons is they're getting extra benefits on top of their breath weapons, and reducing their speed to 0 is pretty great. And kind of gives me like a defensive playstyle or a divide and conquer playstyle, which goes along with the Wall of Force, or the Cage of Force, or whichever one it was. Alright, going down to Psionics. The dragon casts one of the following spells requiring no spell components and using intelligence as the spellcasting ability. Spell save DC 23, plus 15 to hit with spell attacks. 1 day each. Blink, control water, dispel magic, freedom of movement, globe of invulnerability, plane shift, protection from evil and good, and sending. That is a really defensive list, a surprisingly defensive list. In combat, I think dispel magic is the most offensive, and it's still more of a reactionary thing. Super good list. Globe of invulnerability, plane shift as a teleport, blink as a defensive option, freedom of movement as a defensive option, protection from evil and good as a defensive option. Like, it has the defenses. Moving on to its bonus action, we have change shape. It transforms into a medium or small creature while maintaining its in-game statistics other than its size. This ends if it's reduced to 0 hit points. It always kind of blows my mind that these dragons can do that. You can be like a little bird and just be a devastating bird that does, that its bite does 50 damage or whatever. It's crazy to me. In fact, it probably makes more sense to fight out of form, and other than personality, I imagine dragons like their image and want it to be seen. Psychic Step. The dragon magically teleports to an unoccupied space it can see within 60 feet of it. Okay, so we have Misty Step every turn at double the range. That's strong. That's really versatile, aggressive, defensive, all of it. That's just super solid. Moving on to our legendary actions, we have the dragon can make a claw attack. The dragon can use Psychic Step or Spellcasting, and that takes 2 actions, and 3 actions for the dragon spits an amethyst that explodes at a point it can see within 60 feet of it. Each creature within a 20-foot radius sphere centered on that point must succeed on a DC 23 dexterity saving throw or take 18, or more like 48 force damage and be knocked prone. So that's a great setup, because if they haven't used any of their legendary actions this round, they can do it right before the start of their turn, knock someone prone, and get advantage on the bite claw combo. I imagine that it's going to be pretty rare that you get that full round without using your teleport, though, because that's just super good, and positioning wise it might be better than the Explosive Crystal. The Explosive Crystal is more the aggressive side of things, and then the claw is just to round out whatever you use. Looking at a full picture of the Amethyst Dragon, I get the impression that there is more on the defensive end, and it would be impossible to catch this guy with bonus action teleports, plane shifting, Globe of Invulnerability. It just blink. I mean, so my take on it is that it would try and avoid combat if possible. It doesn't need to kill unless it wants to. I think the exception to that might be its lair, but depending on its lair design, it might be able to run them around its lair indefinitely. But I imagine if you got an Amethyst Dragon, that's the only way it's going to fight to the death, is if it was in its lair, and it was a lair that it couldn't maneuver. I am a bit disappointed that they didn't use the tail. I thought it was kind of interesting to have this huge tail that was never mentioned or talked about, that takes gravity to lift up, I'm assuming. So I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity there. I don't see this ever being like a normal combat. I don't see this coming up often unless you kind of forced it to. Just because it can avoid combat so easily and would probably prefer to. However, if it did get into combat, this is one nasty dragon with the breath attacks, the normal combo for dragons, and then I think the biggest thing is the Psychic Step. The Psychic Step is insane. Alright, so that is the Ancient Amethyst Dragon. Let's move on down. I won't go through the whole thing, but we'll see what was lost going to the Adult Amethyst Dragon. Alright, so it's looking pretty much the same. Of course, all the stats are reduced. Hit points, armor, all of the attributes. We still have the same multi-attack. We have Singularity Breath. It looks like we may be missing... Yeah, we are. We're missing Globe of Invulnerability. We're missing Plane Shift. Those are two big defensive options that they lose. They still have Blink, Dispel Magic, Protection from Evil and Good. Freedom of Movement. Looks like they lost Freedom of Movement as well. They still have Change Shape, Psychic Step, and they still have the same legendary actions. Okay, moving down. I'm going to start with the spells because that's easiest. So they lost Control Water, moving down to a young Amethyst Dragon. Everything else seems to be the same. They lost the legendary actions, they lost the legendary resistance, and then everything just gets nerfed as well, so pretty similar. Going down to the Wyrmling, weird. They gained some spells. I didn't expect that. That's weird. So they lost Blink, and they lost Sending, but they gained Tensor's Floating Disc and Unseen Servant. I wonder why. I wonder if there's like an in-game reason for that. I wonder if it's like they can't lift their tail yet. Their psionics aren't strong enough, so they use like Tensor's Floating Disc to lift their tail up. I'm not sure. If you guys know, let me know, because like I said, I go into this stuff blind. I don't know all the background to all these creatures, and I would love to hear you guys who know way more than me, please share. So this has been a blind reading of the Amethyst Dragon. Again, my overall take here is that they are a very defensive dragon, surprisingly defensive dragon. They would probably avoid combat. They are, from their story, they're wise, you know, they might use their sending spell to send information to the party. I kind of see them more as a mentor, and maybe there could be a moment where there's some intrigue going on and the party's tried to convince to kill this mentor, Paarthurnax from Skyrim type moment, where you have these two parties that are both have their perspectives and one of them wants you to kill the dragon. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this episode. On the next episode of A Blind Reading with Sage, we're going to be taking a look at Animated Breath. Hit the subscribe button because you're not going to want to miss it. We'll see you on the next one. Later.